Hi and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the Your Arcade section in the dashboard, as well as the timeline view and starting and stopping sessions in a variety of different methods. So if you want to take a look at my screen over here, I've got the dashboard on the left-hand side in the Your Arcade section, and I've got two stations on the right that will be used for demonstration and what we can do with that. So let's switch over to a closer view of our dashboard. Here it is right here, and some parts of it that you can take a look at. So across the top, we have a variety of different experience types. You can click through on them, and what it'll do is it'll narrow down the station availability. Now, most of these are for all of the stations, but as an example, my tournament one is only for station 8 in this particular case. Now, by clicking on these additionally, when you create a walk-in session, which we'll talk about in a second, that will allow you to have a pre-selected experience type. But we're going to do it from the all, and we'll show you how that might work. The other thing you'll notice is that there is keyboard shortcuts underneath each of these buttons, as well as all over the page where it has a variety of different experience types. And if you hover over them, it'll show you what the shortcut is. For now, we're going to talk about walk-in mode, and I can either turn that on by clicking on here or pressing the keyboard shortcut M, and that will put me in walk-in mode. And what walk-in mode is essentially allows you to start a session immediately without a pre-existing booking in the system. So to set this up, all you have to do is right-click, and it presents me with two different options here. One is a schedule, so if I actually meant to do a schedule of a booking, that will bring that up. Or I can click on new, which will create or start to create a new walk-in session. So we'll click on that, and then as soon as I start dragging my cursor, it would allow me to choose the number of stations as well as the duration. Now, once I click left mouse click, you can also see the duration, by the way, and the end time on the right. But once I left click, what that will do is also offer me the option of choosing different stations. So let's say I didn't want to do 1 and 2, I want to do 1 and 5. That will allow me to choose those stations there. Of course, if you had a booking at the time, it would block out those stations. For today's exercise, we're actually going to choose stations 1 and 2 because those are the ones we'll see. Now I can also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but you can press the minus to take out a station, and the plus of course adds it as we saw. Now on this is a few different options. We'll look in the middle, on the right here rather, it says skip snap right, and occasionally you'll see a snap left if you're creating a booking in the future. But what's going to happen here is if I click on snap right, depending on what is available and what the next station is booked to, it will take me to the next available or the next booked session if I want to do that. So if I want a duration that would last that long, it will do that. When snap left is available, and that will be for booking a future session, we'll see that in a bit, you will be able to book a session on the, you'll be able to snap it to the left of the last session at that point. I can also pick a duration under a specific experience type. So if I wanted to choose a duration of 30 minutes under walk-in session, I can do that. We're going to skip that for now. We're going to actually check the session box because at this point it will ask me to do the specific type of the specific experience type I want to do, and we're going to do walk-in session as that is what it is. Once that's done, it'll show me the walk-in session launch option. If I want to launch from here, I can do a variety of different things. I can select a game that I want to start for somebody. So I can choose, let's just say, artist. And then it allows me to also rename the players, and you'll see how that will be applicable in a minute. I can type in a customer information or add them if I didn't have them. We'll bring up our William Tell. I can record a payment, so they're going to pay by POS terminal, and now they've paid. I can put in a comment at this point, if I can spell, and I can start recording, either capturing a video file or streaming if I have those set up specifically through OBS. So once I click on Start Session, before I do that, I'm going to bring up the full screen here. I'm going to click on Start Session, And if you look at the stations, you'll see that a session has now started, and the game that we have selected should be starting in both stations. The thing you can't see at this point is that there is there's an announcement of several things. And when I say see, I mean here. It will announce that your session has started, and it will also announce that you will now experience whatever game that you've selected. In this case, it would be Artist. Now you can also see on the right hand side here of each of the stations that it has selected it has given you a name rather. It's got the countdown time and it's got the name on the session. If you wanted to change the name for some reason, let's say there was a spelling error, if you click on this part right here and you can type in the new name and send push to station, I'll click push to station and you'll see that the station now has the corrected name. Now while we have this screen up, we're going to take a look at a couple things. If I were to left click on the current session, what will happen is the session will bring up a current summary of what's going on with the station, where I can do a few different things. We'll leave this for another time, but know that it is there. The other thing is if I right click on the session, that'll bring up a few different things. Let me give you a zoomed up view of that. So right here I've got a few different options. I can change the games, I can add bonus time, I can extend the session, I can move the station, and I can stop it. And if I want to close it, I'm going to go ahead and close it. So let's just say I want to give bonus time. If I right click over here, I'm going to choose bonus time. This will allow me to add up to 10 minutes of time, or I can subtract. We'll say subtract. I can subtract up to 30 minutes or the total length of the remaining time of the session, I believe minus 1 minute. So if it was a 60-minute session, I can only do up to 30. If it was 20 minutes remaining on the session, I can only do up to 19 minutes off of that. So if I were to choose 5 minutes, and we're going to switch over to the station so you can see what happens. Switch over to the station, and if I click on adding 5 minutes, click on OK, you can see that the time has been added to the session. It's been added to both stations at this point. There will also be an announcement here that will tell the customer that they've just received a bonus time of 5 minutes, which of course is editable in terms of, or customized in terms of what you want to do. If I go back to the dashboard, if I right click again, I can also extend the time. So the difference between bonus and extend, bonus would be considered a free amount of time, whereas extend would be for if they're buying additional time. So if I click on extend, it gives me the option to add in some time. So you'll notice these right here, the prorated, means that it's going to essentially add time to round it up to a specific duration. So if I added 3 minutes, it would be a total duration of 60 minutes. If I want to add 30 minutes, I would just click on the 30 minutes at this point and then choose which stations I want to extend, so I can limit it to 1 or both or however many stations I might have. I would indicate how they're paying and I would extend now. And now you can see the station and the booking has been extended. This in theory is a second booking, a second session that this will roll into, and if we were to look at the station, we would see that the time has been added, so the customer won't notice any difference. It will just go from there. Now if we go back to the dashboard, if I wanted to do moving of a station, so if we have a station that breaks, let's say our cord breaks and we need to move them while we change the station, I can click on the move and it will allow me to change the station or move the session from that station to somewhere else. So if I click on station 3, it will end the session, and we'll just take a look at the monitor. You can see that now station 2 no longer shows a session in progress. Station 3 is showing a session in progress. And if I right click and move it back to station 2, let's say I fixed the situation and I click on it there, you're going to see it go back to station 2. The session will in theory start, and then the game that they had started with will start again as well. Now I can also change the game that's currently playing. If I click on the games button, this will allow me to choose a different game, and just to keep it consistent, we're going to change it to tilt brush since I still have that installed. So if I wanted to, I could change it for both stations, or I could change a game and choose a different one for a different station if I wanted to. Now there are some advantages to starting the same game across both. So let's just say I want to change the game to propagation. Now propagation gives me some options. I can start the tutorial or not to start the tutorial. If I choose not to start a tutorial, down here under the player setup, I can choose the right hand or left hand if I know which is which. With the tutorial, that allows them to choose it in this particular game. I can also change the game name if I want. This happens to keep the original name that we started with, so we will fix that to Bobby. And then I can click on OK and it'll launch that session. Some games have a few different options. So let's just say we're going to do Burning Descent. Burning Descent gives us a whole bunch of options. So I can choose which mode I'm going to do, single or multiplayer. The maps either up to 4 players or up to 6 players. I can also choose the duration of the matches. I can choose again the names. I can choose male or female. I can choose the kind of character, the team that they're on. I can choose the skin. I can choose if I want to run the tutorial, yes or no. So there are a variety of different things you can do. But just for simplicity's sake, we're going to change this to tilt brush just so we can see that process happening. Keep an eye on the stations. I'm going to click on OK. You can see the game that is currently playing is ended, and it is starting the new game, which happens to be tilt brush, and that should be starting momentarily. And it's probably not. Oh, there it is. It just took a little while. Maybe because Artist is installed and that is throwing it off a little bit. Now the other thing I can do is stop the session, excuse me, but I can actually stop the game. So let us just close this. Let us start a game in the other session. Let's actually change the game back to Artist. Start that game because we know that one works on both. And you can see on the left hand side what the current game is that's playing. What I was going to show you was that if I were to click on either one of these icons, it gives you the option to end the game. Now the station that I've clicked on, it won't allow me to change it, but let's say I don't want to end the game on station 2, I would click this and then I would click stop, and it would stop the game on the station that you've chosen. But let's say you want to end the session, and let's consider this two different things. One is the ending of a session that is ongoing, or if you want to manually stop a session for some reason. Now keep in mind again that that you can choose which stations to stop. So if you don't want to have both sessions end, you can choose, or both stations end, you can choose which ones go. And of course this applies to multiple stations. And then I can add in the note. And then I can click on end session. Now in terms of simulation, if you looked at this, if a session was going on and it would end automatically, then you'd see the game would end, then the session would be ended for the customer, and then the idle playback would start up for the customers out there. And then I have a summary of some games that have happened in that session. And then I've got the block here that shows that the session, as well as any notes in that session, that's the pop-up that keeps coming out. And I can see that. And if I were to left click on it, that will bring up a variety of different information, the summary that came up when we ended the session, which normally wouldn't come up unless you would end the session manually. Now let's jump into a different, that's one way in terms of launching a session, a walk-in session, which we're going to turn off and then discuss the next part, which is going to be through the station. So if we were to look at that first station here, this is our arcade station 1. If I were to have clicked on the desktop menu button over here, that will bring up a list of all our different experience types. Now these are only experience types that are set to single station launch, not multi-station like a party that might have multiple stations booked. So let's say I want to start a session. I walk over to the station, I click on desktop menu if it's not already clicked, and then I click on the session type that I want and the duration. Now again, in this case, the customer will hear an announcement saying the session has started, and I will be presented with the game list. Now this was the case regardless of how you started the session. If you were to go over to the station and click on desktop menu, that will present to you a list of all the different games that are available. And you can scroll down and you can find the game that you want, click on it, and you can start the game there. Or you can type in the name that you want to start and click on the game from there. This allows it to be easy to find. Click on start, and that particular experience will start for the customer. And if we were to look back at the dashboard, you'd see that in the dashboard we have an ongoing session, so we can actually see that it's been created. The, of course, disadvantage of doing it this way would be that you can't enter customer information initially, and you can't launch a game, of course, right away. You have to wait for it to start. But you can certainly add that information later by clicking on the session and then entering the customer here. And now it's added that customer. And of course, they haven't paid for it already, so you would need to record the payment and you'd pay it that way. Now, some other things while we're in here, you can see a few different things. You can assign a tag to the session if you want to filter it in the reservations section. As you saw, you can also, of course, add in a customer or change the customer if you've done that. You can record a payment if a payment hasn't been made. You can add a note, send an email if you have the SMTP set correctly in your system. You can also change the color of the block in the system. So it's just a matter of clicking on it, clicking on the color, and it changes. So if I close this, you'd see that now it's changed to a different color. And same idea. If I've now right click, I've got a few different options here. If I want to extend, etc. there. So that's two different ways of starting a session, from a walk-in mode to the starting it directly from within the station. The third method is via a booking. So you can actually book a session in a couple of different ways. You can click on the sell ticket option, which will allow you to choose a experience type. Let's say this one. Choose the duration if there is that option, if there's multiple durations. Choose the number of stations, which will then block the times that are only available. So this is sold out. I can't book 4 stations there, and that would apply across whatever date I pick. So right now we're going to keep it on the 9th, and I'm going to book it for 2:30. I can also again add in a customer if I had a customer to add. I can also click on add customer to add the customer. I can add a voucher. I can add a credit card if a customer doesn't already have a credit card on file. I can again record the payment, add any comments here. And then once I've done that, I can click on sell ticket. That'll give me the summary where there could still be other things I might do. And there it is, booked for this time. Now, let's say I want to move this reservation. All I have to do is, of course, I can right click on it, which allows me to reschedule, or I can open it, which is the same as left clicking, which will open it there. Or I can just click and drag, and now I can move it to any time I want. So let's just say I'm going to move it to about 2 o'clock. Once I moved it, this will bring up the reschedule, which will also come up if I chose reschedule from the right click. At this point, I've got a few different things I can do. I can completely rebook it for a different date and a different time that is available, of course. I can change the experience type if I accidentally chose escape room and I meant to do walk-in session. I can change the duration if that's an option. Again, this would assume, let's just say we're doing the reservation session, and I can now change the duration, and I can change the number of stations if I want to. Once I've done that, I click on done. That will again show me the summary, but if I close it, you can see that now it shows 3 stations versus 1 station. That was through Cell Ticket. The other option is if I right click, that gives me the option to schedule, just like it did in the walk-in mode. But with the walk-in mode, of course, that was more primarily for walk-in modes. But if I click on schedule, it'll bring me the same menu or the same time. I'm sorry, I apologize. It will let me choose the duration. Now notice, because there's a station here that's blocked off, I can't really go past here in terms of multiple stations. It only gives me this option here. But if I right click, what that will do is allow me to choose a station that I want to do. So if I wanted to add this station for that time, I can certainly do that. Now, again, it brings me that same schedule over here. So if I snap to the left, which is a little easier to see in this case, it brings it right up against the ending of the current session that's currently playing. I can also pick a duration from either the right or left. So this is going to depend on if I want it to start at a certain point. So to the left, I want to start it, or from where I selected to the right, I'd want to do that. So let's say if I do 60 minutes, it's choosing it from here. If I do 30 minutes, it's going to do it against the current session or the end of the current session. As a matter of fact, it's actually, I'm mistaken here. It's not the end of a current session because it's only one station there. So it's really up, it's up from now. So let's just say I want to do the 60 minutes after, and that will give me that. Once I'm ready, I can click on the schedule, and now I've got that same thing here, but the difference is it's giving me, it's already scheduled the time that I wanted. And at this point I can, if let's say I meant to put it in a later time, I can certainly select it at that point and I can book it for later. And 2 slots, as you can see, are available anytime for the remainder of the day. So I can do that. So let's say I want to do 4 o'clock, I sell the ticket, and that brings up that session, and there is my 4 o'clock booking. Again, all broken down by time, also you can see what is going on. Now when a session comes in, so I've booked these things and now I need to start a session. And so what I want to do is I want to click on the session that I want to start. And now it presents me with this dialog. Again, I can edit any information that I want to at this point, but a few things that I can do at this point. One is I can choose the stations that this booking is going to be set in. So I can say, oh, I meant to use 5, 2, and 3 to start that session. Now the other nice thing is, let's say you were coming during the day, you've got your bookings, you can go through and you can set the stations, click on Save Station, and if I were to close this, you would see that this now is booked on those stations. Everything else is just auto choice to 1 to whatever, but those aren't set. Those are just the stations that it just chose at the beginning, which are not set. The set is when you go in and you are to click on Save Stations after you've changed them. You'll see that 1 is in use, and so it won't let me book that. It won't let me change that station. But let's say I want to do 7. Now I can save the stations, and again, if I close it, you'd see that. Now the overlap again is mainly because this session has not been set. So if I go in here and I go to try to reschedule it, you'll see that 1 is in use and 3 is in use. So I'd have to pick 6 and 8, and then it allows me to save the stations. And if I go back now, it's broken up appropriately. Now let's say I want to start this session. This person has come in. I click on this, and now again I've got a few different options, excluding the stuff up here that may be necessary, but I can now select the names of the customers, and now when I start it again, it'll show up in that countdown timer. I can also select a game that I want to start across all stations. Now please note that if there is a we want to do we've lost that. This is a issue with the browser. Bob, Nancy, and Julie. And now if I want to choose the game, I can do that. What I was saying was that any game that has any parameters like propagation or something of that nature, you would want to start the session first, and then you'd want to launch the game. So start the session, then launch the game. But anything like this that would be just normally single player type stuff, you can just do that. And then once you've selected, click on Use Now, and that will launch the session across all the appropriate stations, which are 3, 5, and 7. And I'd show you, but of course I don't have those stations set up. And now this station, as you can see, it's ongoing, as both these sessions, the purple one up here and the purple one down here, are in session, and you can see by the animation of the session. Now, a few other things that you can note, other than walk-in mode, we have the ability to change the steps that we want to see in terms of the visual up here. So if I want to see in 15-minute steps, you can see that changes that, and it shows the times as 1, 1:15, 1:30, etc. If I want to show in 45-minute increments, that will do that. Or if I only book on the hour, then I might want to see it in 60-minute increments. I tend to prefer the middle of 30. I can also scroll through to previous date or next date to go through the different days to look at different schedules of the day. So if I want to go back, it's a great way to do it. I can also click on today, which will bring me back to today, or I can pick a date and choose a different date to see what I want to see from previous dates of bookings. And today will bring me back. All fun stuff. There's of course more that you can learn, but this gives you the basic overview of all the different stuff you can do with the timeline view, as well as seeing how to start and stop sessions, how to change games, and do a variety of different things during a session or during your day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to email us at info@synthesisvr.com. We're happy to answer. Thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.